Gin. It seems like a simple drink, but when you really start thinking about all the different nuances and possibilities in terms of the way you can make the stuff, I mean, they're just absolutely endless. So today I'm going to show you a way that you can figure out the exact type of gin that you like to drink without having to make or buy thousands and thousands of bottles. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, and this is Still It, the still. The little mini pot still is running. I'm distilling something over here. I'm going to tell you about that in a second. It's going to be very helpful for us later on. I also have a couple of bottles of 40% ABV vodka ready to roll. Perhaps you're not even convinced that this is actually a problem. Let me elaborate just a wee bit. So, if you just think about the very basic, like the most basic sort of gin that you could make, it's going to have 4 things in it. Well, 5 if you count the alcohol, but 4 botanicals. Juniper, you got to have it. If you don't have it, it's not gin, no matter what anyone tells you. Citrus, coriander, and some sort of root, more than likely angelica or orris. If you just think about those 4 ingredients, you've already got a huge array of different gins just in the amounts that you may use of each different type, right? Then you multiply that by the different types of ingredients themselves you can have. So you've got orris root, and you've got angelica root, and then you've got licorice root. So those are 3 different options that you're going to multiply by again. Citrus. How many citruses are there? Lime, orange, lemon, mandarin. There's 4. I'm sure there's a buttload more. Grapefruit. And even within that, you can use fresh peel or dried peel, so on and so forth. So I think you're starting to get the idea, right? The possibilities magnify exponentially. And then for every botanical, you have the option of macerated and then strained and put into the pot, macerated and dumped into the pot with it, just put into the pot at the beginning of the run, vapor infused. This gets crazy out of hand really freaking quick. And we haven't even started talking about anything other than the first 4 botanicals, right? Anyway, I hope I've presented the problem in a somewhat approachable way and got you a little bit intrigued on how you can dial in your preferences. And this technique will allow you to look at all of those different ingredients that we haven't even mentioned as well. You know, if you want to use allspice or fennel seeds or hibiscus, then this will work just fine as well. Which reminds me, I need to, time to switch. There we go. Don't worry, I'll talk about this soon. So that brings us to the topic of today's video, how to figure out your perfect gin without having to go through all of these different iterations. The basic idea is that we are going to make tinctures, and we're going to make tinctures with different base ingredients for gin and mix them into our alcohol. So what I have distilling right here is 400 mils of 40% ABV vodka and 70 grams of crushed juniper berries. Just juniper berries. I'm making juniper extract basically right now, and it's pretty intense. We're going to use this to dial in the amount of juniper in the mix, and I also have, well, that smells amazing, another 400 mils of 40% ABV vodka with 40 grams of coriander ready to go into the still when this is finished. You can make up single ingredient distillations of any ingredient you want to play with gin, just like this. And having little mini pot stills like the Still Spirits Air Still is great for this, because I'm literally doing 400 ml batches right now, which is wonderful. Not only are these going to allow you to make extracts and then mix them with other flavors, it's also going to allow you to really, really understand the flavor that ingredient brings to the table. We'll go into that in a little bit more depth later on. This video is sponsored by Still Spirits, and they basically sent me their little gin kit and told me to do pretty much whatever I wanted with it. And this is what I decided would be the most helpful, I guess is the right word, for the community. But this little gin box is basically a whole lot of flavorings like we're making now, kind of extracts of gin flavors. But if we just do the old lucky dip, what do we got here? Bitter orange. Great. And lemon, citrus. Interesting. Cinnamon and cardamom. You get the idea anyway, guys. So will little bottles of essence like angelica and orris make the best gin you've ever made? I don't know. I haven't done it yet. But my guess is no, they're not going to. I mean, they're not fresh ingredients. That's the way these things go. But I'm putting money on the fact that we're going to be able to use this to create a couple of different kind of gin profiles to really dial in the flavor of gin that I prefer. The cool thing is, because it's a somewhat standardized kit, you guys can follow along at home. Or if you don't want to, pick up one of their kits, which is fine by me, you can do this, like what I'm doing over here, with all the different flavors for gin. By the way, the kit also comes with a 10ml syringe, a pipette, and a recipe book. I think, however, it is high time to make some booze. Oh, there we go. We're done with the juniper. We'll ditch this, and I'll start the coriander distillation off as we're going. Yep. All right, so I am going to pour each of these glasses with 100 mils of spirits. The reason I'm doing 100 mils, I'd like to do less, but the resolution on tiny little, if I did 20 mils per glass, the resolution on the stuff that I'm going to be putting in there is going to be tiny. I'm going to be measuring it in, like 1.001 of a mil or something silly like that. So that's fine. For science, we can use up about 650 mils of vodka. Each of these is going to be a different gin, and these 5 are going to be recipes that the book has. I'm going to use those as starting points and then mess with them. These 2, I'm just going to go completely, on what I feel like. I'm going to make 2 different kinds of gin, and the kinds of gin I'm talking about is 1, gins that can go into a dirty martini. If I'm feeling like a grunty gin-based drink, that's my go-to. Dirty martini all the way. And then the second is something a little more, I don't know quite how to put it, a little bit more pretty, perhaps a little floral or fruity to go in a gin and tonic and be quaffed quickly. I measured all of the ingredients out with a 1 milliliter syringe, which has markings for hundredths of a mil, so it was pretty easy to measure very small amounts of liquid. For those of you that don't like using metric, honestly, I think this might be one of those situations where you just need to bite the bullet and get a 1 milliliter syringe. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Obviously, if you're going to be making the larger amounts prescribed in the little manual that comes with the kit, you won't need anything. You can just use the syringes and the pipette provided. I've made up 5 gins, and I've been tasting them as I went. So I made it, I tasted it, I've tasted between them a little bit. Why? Why on earth have I done this? All I've done is made 5 gins out of the Still Spirits playbook. Surely you're saying we can do better than this. That's not the point at this stage. The point at this stage is to get a diverse set of ideas on where we could go to from here. And I'm just using this as an example. So if you start making up things like this, once you've got, your coriander and your juniper. Oh, wait, he's running the still again? Yeah, I did. I couldn't help it. I put some, cardamom. 30 grams of cardamom in 400 mils of 40% ABV vodka. And this is going to be a cardamom bomb. Yep. What I'm getting at, guys, is you don't need to use these bottles. It's just it was convenient for me to do so and pick things out of the book and just roll with them. So I don't need to like these. They just need to inspire me and give me different sort of ideas on where to go from here. So let's go through them real quick and I'll tell you what I think of all of them. The first one, the Big Ben, has this in it. And there's nothing particularly wrong with it. But I will say I'm definitely missing the citrus. And that doesn't quite seem right without a little bit of citrus. In some ways, whoops, shit, hold on. In some ways, it reminds me a little bit of Odin's Easy Gin. It feels like it could be a good springboard to sort of leap off and do whatever you want to do. But I mean, that doesn't give me any specific inspiration here, I don't think. So number 2, the Tower. Which is pretty much literally, is it actually the same? Almost exactly the same. It's got slightly less of the juniper and coriander in it, but it has added the citrus, and it just brightens the whole thing up. It's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like seasoning. No, it's not like seasoning. It's like getting the acid balance right in a tomato sauce, funnily enough. Everything just pops. That's what this is like. Hold on, let me taste this. We're still good. I need water after that because I can't taste a damn thing right now. brings us to the Sapphire. What do they call it? Sapphire Isles Dried Gin. It's got this in it. And I put this in there as a bit of a wild card just to kind of widen the gamut of what we're going for here. Because let's face it, these two are basically the same. But I was interested to see what happened without the citrus because I've never drunk exactly the same gin with and without citrus before. So, I mean, these are the sort of little things that this kind of test or this kind of system or this kind of, I don't know, whatever, like messing around with tinctures allows you to do, right? I now know that's why this gin feels empty. It doesn't have that citrus note to it. And the citrus isn't bold. It's humming along quite low. Anyway, I didn't think I was going to be into this, but I'm very into it. What I'm not so fond of is the way that the, where is it? The Grains of Paradise and Kubeb. What the hell is that? I Googled it because I've never heard of it before. Piper Kubeb, or tailed pepper. Don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the way this is showing up, and I actually don't think it's the Kubeb. I think it's the Grains of Paradise. It's just sending it like ever so slightly towards that Christmas spice thing, which is not what I want for this when I'm aiming towards, you know, a martini gin. The other thing, and I'm being super critical here, that I don't like about this, and to be fair, these two as well, for a martini gin, is that they're just a little bit subtle. They're a little bit like dainty. I want something that's going to stand up to the vermouth, so I can actually put vermouth in it. Something that's going to stand up to being ice freaking cold, and something that's going to be slightly diluted. So I want it to have a really big punch when it comes to the juniper, the cumin, and then something a little bit earthy and grungy going on underneath as well to pair with the olives and the olive juice. That is the one that I'm going to be messing with to go forward. All right, now we get into the sweet ones. So first of all, the pink gin, and nope. It's got that, I mean, I have yet to have a berry essence that doesn't end up smelling like this. Other than that, it's great. In saying that, if you've never had a pink gin, this will kind of tell you, it'll give you a really good idea of what it's like. I mean, you can smell this and imagine what this would taste like if you took that essencey berry flavor out and put in something nicer. Actually, point to be made, blueberry, like the darker berries, I quite often find smell better. Yeah. Still a little bit like fake berry-ish, but it's not nearly as bad, so you could switch it out for that. I could go this way for sure. I could play with this and then, you know, use real berries instead. But I just made the pink gin like not long ago, so I've got plenty of that kicking around. I want to do something different, and this is definitely the inspiration I'm looking for. This, by the way, is the elderflower, what do they call it? Just elderflower gin flavoring. This recipe here. Now, I'm not entirely on board with the cinnamon. Actually, there is a slight amount of cardamom in this with the cinnamon. Honestly, I don't get it that much. It's like it's there if you go hunting for it, but you really got to go looking for it. I'm not so into the cinnamon or the cardamom, but those floral, almost like bright, effervescent notes coming off the elderflower and the lavender, which actually smells pretty good. In saying that, I don't know if I've ever had fresh elderflower anything. Another wonderful reason to do this with just elderflower. Maybe this is like the berry, and I just don't know. But that is really nice. Those flavors mixed with a relatively bright, highly carbonated tonic, I feel like would just leap out of the glass. Maybe even with a couple of slices of cucumber or something like that in there as well. So this is what I'm going to be basing my G&T gin on. So let's get rid of all of these others for now. In fact, do I need them? Yeah, I better keep them. I was going to throw them all into a bottle, but chances are I'm going to need them. Oh, by the way, guys, the Stillet coins and the Stillet Glen Cairns are available in the merch store, chasercraft.com, if you're interested, along with a bunch of other stuff as well. Anyway, let's get to mixing up my own version, shall we? I had to re-pour these glasses because I ended up using them in there. But just in case you're wondering, guys, the vodka I'm using for all of this is the wheat and barley vodka that I made not long ago. If you want to check it out, video card over there. So the changes from the base sapphire recipe that I want to make to start with are, number one, I'm taking out the glycerin. I just don't think you need it. I'm going to be mixing it with vermouth, and I quite like my vodka to start with, so we're fine there. And everything else I am bumping up slightly from where it is because I want it to be a bit bigger, I want it to be a bit bolder. And then even after it's slightly bigger and slightly bolder, I'm going to go dumping in some more of everything I've got over here that I just made. So the cardamom, the juniper, and the coriander. I'm going to be nixing the licorice. I'm taking that out. It's actually quite nice in this, but not 100% what I'm going for. And I'm nixing the paradise grains and the kebab, whatever the hell they are. Right now, I'm thinking there's a touch too much almond. Maybe I should have left it the same, but remember, I'm about to doctor it with extra goodness from the juniper, coriander, and cardamom. So first of all, actually, let me have a taste. I don't think I've never tasted 100% juniper spirit before. I've chewed juniper berries to try and get a really good idea of what they taste like. This is pretty similar to what I was thinking. The thing that surprises me is there's slightly more of the berry-ish notes, the sweet notes, than what I was expecting. I was expecting this to be much more just the pine, and now I'm starting to realize that some of the more pretty notes in gin are coming from the juniper that I never attributed to it before. So there you go. I learned something. Hopefully if you guys do this, you learn something too. Wow, I just nailed 1 mil right off the bat. Let's try that. Yes. Bam. Wow, I nailed that. I'm going to get cocky and I'm going to screw up the next ones and have to make this whole tincture again. Let's dial in the coriander next. Now this is definitely not entirely what I was expecting. I've always struggled to find the boundary between juniper and coriander in a gin. I know that people talk about coriander being citrusy, and I get that. It smells citrusy for sure. And there's a citrusy flavor here too, but there's also a like more of a grungy, like traditional spice flavor, not hot, but like cooking spices. Kind of the flavor that I think of when I add this into a curry. But that flavor, both the citrus and the grunge, is going to play really nice with the vermouth and the olives respectively. So let's go with 1/2 mil. No, let's not even do that. I nailed the first one. I'm going to get cocky on this one. 1/3 mil of coriander. Wow, I thought that was going to be too much for a second, but it was all sitting on top. After letting that sit for a second, I'm completely on board with that. No further, definitely no further. All right, now here is the big dog. Cardamom gets away so easily in gins. It can just ruin gins by, not by being nasty, but by, you think you're putting a little bit in and it's a shitload. So I'm going to literally put 0.05 of this in to start with, because I'm terrified of it. It's like literally 2 drops. And get that away from me while I'm sniffing it. I hope you're starting to get why this technique, or why, you know, making a gin in composite form by tincture is a really, really powerful tool. And I've talked to multiple professional distillers that make amazing gin. Some of them made their recipes like this, and then they made up whatever, like 20 liters of the stuff and put it away as a reference. And then they moved on to trying to figure out how to make their reference gin with all the botanicals in the vapor path and in the pot and so on and so forth. Some still do this. They tincture away and they have storage for each of the tinctures. So then if the juniper comes in one week and it's slightly less strong than the week before, they can just adjust on the fly, which is pretty cool as well. So man, I can taste that. I think I can taste it. Is it in my head? No, it's not in my head. Do I want more? No, what I need to do it is taste it next to this, which is incorrect. That's not what this is anymore. I switched it. This is the last gin that I made, the base for the berries. I like the earthiness and the grunginess of this more. It is more juniper forward, but this has a much better citrus profile. That is a better, more balanced gin right now. This one's nice, but it's not quite there. It needs a little bit more citrus after smelling that. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of the bitter orange is going to be what we needed. So how much did we put in there? We put in 0.3 citrus, so let's do 0.2. So we've almost doubled the citrus. The orange, the bitter orange definitely helped it. Gave it a bit of complexity and brightness. I'm going to put in another 0.2 actually. Yeah, it's just not quite the same. I think maybe the citrus essences are suffering just a teeny weeny bit from how the berries suffer. It's not as bright, it's not as bold, it's not as real as the real thing. It's still good, but I don't think I'm going to get all the way there by just adding more of it. That actually has slightly more cardamom, so I'm going to do that too. This is going to be the last thing I do. We're going to bump that up to another 0.3 of a mil. Oh, I think that did it. I know I said I was done, but just another 0.5 of juniper. Let's just make sure I didn't make that worse. Nope. I think we're done. That's pretty good. Now, obviously, guys, I have been sampling this and drinking it while adding to it. So as you can see, it's probably, I don't know, it's down to maybe like 80 mils now, not 90 mils. So the additions that I made at the end weren't properly weighted. So if you wanted to do it properly from here, I would take everything that I just said, list it all out, and make it again with a fresh batch, you know, with another fresh 100 mils, and then just double check that everything lines up. Honestly, I'm not going to bother because I kind of know what this tastes like. It tastes like how I imagined. I'm going to put this in a wee bottle and keep it, and then I'll, at some stage, try and recreate it, you know, directly out of the still. Team, this video is dragging on seriously, so here are the changes that I made to the elderflower version, and I think you guys are getting the idea here. I don't think I really need to go through this specifically anyway, but those are the changes I made just purely with the still spirits things. Now I'm going to add another mil of juniper in here and another half mil of coriander. Yeah, that's better. You know what? I think some of these essences suffer just a hint on the aroma. The flavor's pretty good, but the aroma doesn't jump out of the glass like it does with a fresh gin made with, you know, quote unquote real ingredients. Do we want cardamom? No, we definitely do not. Do we need more of anything? If anything, we want just a hint more citrus, kind of similar before, but we're probably not going to get those exact flavors I'm looking for in the essences. They're sort of representing the flavor I want. Lovely. I know how to go chase it now. What do we want? Just a touch more juniper. Because I don't want this to be completely, you know, like pretty. I want it to have a bit of that resinous, that was 1 more mil of juniper. I want it to have that resinous gin-like character, like juniper to be the main character. Call me crazy, that's how I like my gins. Yep, that's where it is. All right, guys, I need to say a huge thank you to the Patreons. Thank you so much for letting me do this kind of crazy ass stuff. I've literally been in the shed all day doing this. And thank you again to Still Spirits for letting me do this video, for sending the kit over, and for sponsoring the video. Patreons, if you've got any ideas on how I can use this stuff now that I've got it laying around, I will be putting a lens up on Patreon, and we'll get some ideas going around there as well. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That gives me, well, that just helps me out so much. Tells YouTube it's a cool video, it'll show it to other people, and that is brilliant for me. If you're watching these videos and you're enjoying them and you haven't subscribed yet, sort it out, click the button down below, and I'll catch you next time, guys. Keep on chasing the craft. See ya.